Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Time Traveler's Handbook. In this episode, we are going to be discussing the season finale of Season 3 of Doctor Who, The Last of the Time Lords. Spoilers ahead for Season 3, Episode 13. The Master, who is a rival Time Lord to the Doctor, has conquered Earth with the use of a modified TARDIS that he calls the Paradox Machine. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is the Paradox Machine. We've talked previously about paradoxes and alternate universes, and this mechanic is a neat little trick that the show uses to justify having a paradox in the show that doesn't necessarily destroy the universe or have the same adverse consequences that it had in the past of the show. If you need a reminder, you can go and watch that Father's Day episode again, but just a quick recap of that. By creating a paradox in that episode, the Doctor and Rose end up in an alternate universe called the Paradox Universe, where they have to resolve the paradox before they can return to their normal universe, and time is weaker there, and there are enemies and stuff like that. Now, why is a paradox machine needed in this Season 3 finale? The paradox in The Last of the Time Lords is the fact that the Master has used the future generations of humanity to enslave and kill humanity. If one of the Toclafane, which is the future generation of humanity, kills one of their distant ancestors, that would cause what is known as a grandfather paradox, which is a paradox that occurs when you prevent the birth of yourself through interacting with previous generations of yourself. If you are never born, you could never go back and change things, and thus you would have been born after all, and thus lies the paradox. With that possibility of the paradox happening, the Master would be unable to bring the Toclafane to invade Earth, so he uses a paradox machine to handle the temporal anomaly that this would cause. What it really does on a technical level is sets the universe off in an alternate dimension, adjusting the rules such that the Toclafane killing their ancestors does not affect the Toclafane. You can think of this as a paradox universe, even though it's a little bit different from how it happened previously, but it's just more controlled now. I like to imagine that the paradox machine has created another world in which the Toclafane exist and are not the descendants of those ancestors, rewriting the future in order to make itself self-consistent. The paradox machine ends up being destroyed during the episode, which results in the universe that it had created and maintained to cease to exist. The Toclafane cease to exist, and the people who were transported to this alternate universe are sent back to the original universe. So the paradox is resolved. I think that the paradox machine is an interesting answer to the rules that Doctor Who has set up for itself in this iteration of the show. An alternate universe, as we've seen before, takes a lot of energy to move to and from, and paradoxes have been shown to have the effect of bringing Reapers and wiping us all out, or moving to a parallel universe has caused rifts to be open. Using the paradox machine, it applies the rules of the universe in a new way, and makes a method of traveling to a paradox universe without tearing down what was possible before. If you're going to make things new in a universe, they should follow the rules of the universe at the same time, and the paradox machine does that really well. Also, it makes sense that this all-powerful time machine that the Doctor uses can also be used for this kind of malicious deed if you have another one of them. That's the end of this episode about The Last of the Time Lords. We're moving on to Season 4 in the next episode, starting with The Fires of Pompeii. As always, thank you for listening.